are very confusing things in storylines. But why is that? Well, you'll have to wait and find out. Fun fact, did you know that some of Kirby's copy abilities actually show some video game characters' abilities? For example, the sword ability is, Link from Legend of Zelda. And the fighter ability is, Ryu from Street Fighter. But there are also other obscure ones. There's also the psychic ability that Kirby gets in Kirby Planet Robobot that's basically a rendition of Ness's abilities from Earthbound. Not a lot of people know that because Earthbound is, it's well known, but it's also not that well known, as I've said in some other videos. So it basically depends if you know Earthbound or not, but that's a fun fact for you. Now, let's get back to a regular program. There are very confusing things in storylines. Like, sometimes you could be watching a story and going, hey, the story's pretty good, but that doesn't make any sense. And not oh, it doesn't make sense in real life. We obviously never really think about that because it's dumb. It's fiction for a reason. But obviously some things in stories just don't even make sense within its own universe. Like, you could be like, what? Why is that? So, I have 3 stories, or not really 3 stories, but 3 things in stories that confuse a lot of people. And the one thing that can confuse people is obviously sometimes the power system. Yes, I know, there are a lot of power systems in universes that, make sense. Some have established ones, some don't, Ki from Dragon Ball, Chakra from Naruto, Haki from One Piece, or Cursed Energy from Jujutsu Kaisen, all that jazz. But then there are other things, like in My Hero Academia, which don't make sense. Like quirks. Now, quirks at the beginning did make sense, but then they started getting more and more absurd. Like, there's a rewind ability, and there's literally like a ability to warp reality. Like, you're telling me that you can just get that in that universe? Though that isn't really something that's all too bad, because obviously it never really said that they couldn't happen. So while it is confusing at first, you kind of just left to be like, it is weird, but hey, it's not that bad. I mean, there are other universes that have way wackier powers than this. But then we also get to other universes where it's like, how do their power systems work? Like, obviously in One Piece, it basically goes over very well. Sure, Haki is revealed very later in the series, but nothing contradicted its existence. Ki in Dragon Ball obviously is there at the beginning of the series, and obviously Ki is kind of just expansive and can pretty much do anything, so anything even remotely random happening, you kind of just don't react to, because it's like, yeah, it's cool, but it's also like, you'd expect that. Just like Chakra and Naruto, it's like, nothing really contradicts it. But then there are some series with abilities that make you go, why is this even a thing? Why does this even happen? Why can they do this? Is there a reason they can do this? Obviously, a lot of series have that. But I feel like there is one thing. There are many power systems that are just usually make sense, but others are just plain weird. Like, there are some things that you can get the gist of, like Ki in Dragon Ball, Chakra in Naruto, Haki in One Piece, Cursed Energy, Jujutsu Kaisen. All those things usually are intertwined, and the abilities are, they make sense within that universe. But then there are other things, like in My Hero Academia, that don't really make sense. Like, at the beginning, My Hero Academia was pretty standard in its scaling of power. It pretty much had its power system where it's like, hey, you could be born with bulging eyeballs, or you could get a Lego head or something, and I don't know, you could piss green or something. Yeah, that's your superpower, kid. You take a shit and it's blue. Like, I don't know, like something stupid and weird like that.
What?
But then we get to the, oh, you can breathe fire. Oh, you can just shoot ice. Oh, you can, I don't know, scream very loud and burst eardrums like that character in Mortal Kombat. You know, there's stuff like that that's pretty ordinary. But then we get to the abilities that are like, there's a girl that can literally rewind you out of existence. I mean, what? And then there's Stars and Stripes who can warp reality. Sure, it's a limited version of reality warping, but it's still pretty busted, and it makes you think, why haven't they been here or have even been heard of? I feel like that someone with reality warping powers is much more impressive than someone that can punch very hard. To be honest, I'm sorry, but that just does not make sense to me in the slightest. And I know she was designed later, but I don't even know why she was designed in the first place. Like, why? Like, obviously they had to nerf Shigaraki in the series, but couldn't they have done that in a better way? Couldn't they have just made Izuku get like powers of One for All to be like, hey, the Vestiges could be like, or basically the spirits inside Izuku's head could be like, hey, look, you're unlocking new power in One for All. You can now punch very hard and, you know, destroy quirks and all that. You can't destroy All for One though. You have to use all your full strength and stuff, and you have to like, pull all power in that, but you'll destroy One for All. So yeah. Like, they didn't really have to design Stars and Stripes. I get that the power cliffing of... But you could literally just make Izuku power cliff himself. You could just make him be like, oh yeah, he can now have all these abilities. He can now... Basically, he could be given quirks. You could pretty much do anything. You don't... Sure, Shiraki's busted, but you could literally just make Izuku even more busted. Like, you're the literal author of the story. You can make him do everything. You can make him shit so hard he could destroy the universe. Like, that's literally how... like fiction works. You can make him do anything. Hell, you can make him piss so hard he literally floods the entire world. Like, that's literally how fiction works. You can make anything, no matter how absurd, make sense. There's another thing in storylines that are confusing too. There's obviously, well, main characters. Main characters are a big topic in fiction. Some are very beloved, like Goku, or maybe it depends. Some are, you know, kind of very hated at the beginning, like Izuku was, and got more popularity later, you know, gained my respect later as the series went on. You know, at first he was a crybaby, you know, he gained my respects, you know, later in the series when he became badass, you know, it developed. But there are also other characters that sometimes don't really fit the margin of main character, and sometimes have other characters that are more interesting, which isn't a bad thing. I know that main characters are supposed to be the vision we see them in, and by that I mean when we see the story through our main character. We see, you know, in Goku's journey, we see the journey through Goku. In Naruto's journey, we see it through Naruto. In Luffy's journey in One Piece, we see him, you know, his perspective of becoming stronger and gaining crew members and wanting to become the Pirate King. Now, obviously, we see the series through main characters. But there are also other series that are way different from that. There are stories like One Punch Man where it's like, yeah, Saitama's the main focus, but the other characters are also much more interesting and have much more appeal to them story-wise, which is why they're shown a lot more. Sure, Saitama is the center page of the series, you know, he's the main character, but that doesn't mean he has to have the spotlight all the time. Like, I remember watching Dogman, and, you know, obviously Dogman is the main character, but his arch rival, Petey, is also technically a main character, because he also gets some of the screen time too. And it's not because Dogman's boring. And it's not a situation like Saitama where he's so strong he beats everything in a punch. It's because it's basically a different kind of story, because we see Petey saying that he's evil and obviously gaining a child, and then he now has to take care of a kid, and throughout this entire movie, slowly but surely starts loving the kid even more than at first he was dismissing him. And even at the end, he winds up wanting to be a good person, at least for once in his life, that he's been trying, to basically deny his goodness because of all the stuff he faced in his past. Those things are very different. But that worked for that story because that's the story that it tells. We can't really have something like that in One Piece. Now we can with other characters, and we have done that with other characters, but it usually comes down to we see Luffy's journey. And while we can see slightly other characters' journeys and what they've been through, it has to usually stay on Luffy, because we know Luffy, because this is his entire journey of becoming the Pirate King. So, yeah, main characters can also be confusing, but they're usually also a main blessing. And now, the final thing that can confuse people are basically reasons for characters doing what they do. There are a lot of reasons in fiction that characters do what they do, and some of them are, very compelling, and some of them are stupid, but sometimes they can be fun stupid. Some characters, just like Goku, just like wanting to get stronger because he likes getting stronger. He just really likes it. There's no bigger reason, there's no ulterior motive. He just likes getting stronger because he likes getting stronger. But then we also see, other characters like Luffy, where he wants to be the Pirate King. Well, we don't really know what that means. What does the Pirate King mean? Does that mean he gets a crown when he beats all the Marines or something? Like he beats the big bad of the series, and he's celebrating woo, King Luffy, yeah, you've done it, bro, you've done it, you finally beat everybody.
Woo! Yeah, baby, that's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
You've become the Pirate King. Here's the One Piece. This very small cube that literally has been foreshadowed this entire time in the series. Yeah! Woo! We don't really know that. And Naruto, it's kind of established what the Hokage is, so we get a gist of what Naruto will usually go through. It's not like the Pirate King where it's never explained at all what that even means. It's does it mean he becomes the best? Does it mean he becomes the strongest? Does he gain the most allies? Does he get more respect? We don't really know. Hell, we don't even know what the One Piece is. What is the One Piece? Is it some magical artifact or something? Is it just something that you're given? What would it be? Well, I think that's what makes the journey even more exciting, but also can be a detriment, because on one hand, it keeps you on your toes for what you want to see in the series. It can make you be like, hey, I want to see what this Pirate King thing is and what the One Piece is. But then you could get to the end of the series and then you could be like, that's it? That's the last episode? That was just a bunch of cheap walk cycles! Okay, I get, if you've seen that SpongeBob episode, you get what I'm saying. Literally, you could be staring at the screen, hoping for something extraordinary, but then you see it, and you're like, what even was that? That literally was not worth my time at all. So, that can be a bad thing. But fiction is a gamble. Stories are gambles, kind of, where it's you can get the right story, but it really depends. So what do you guys think? Are there storylines to confuse you? Are there things in stories that make you confused? Well, comment that down below. and, you know, maybe they'll see it. And I hope to see you next time. This is Chris from Let's Talk Franchises, and this is me signing out. Bye.